The last original Supreme is 81 years old. She performed 2 sold-out shows in New York in March 2025 and told the crowd she is never going to retire. She headlined Glastonbury at 78, performed at Buckingham Palace for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, and is currently touring with 3 of Britain's finest orchestras. She has 5 children, 8 grandchildren, 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a Presidential Medal of Freedom, and a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award she has won twice. The first woman in history to do that. She is also, by almost every account from the people who made it with her, the reason Florence Ballard died in poverty at 32. The reason Mary Wilson never got what she was owed. The reason the greatest girl group in American history ended the way it did. Not with a reunion, not with closure, but with one woman standing in the spotlight and 2 others watching from somewhere it didn't reach. The story the world has always told about Diana Ross is a triumph story. The girl from the Brewster Douglas housing projects in Detroit who became the queen of Motown, who had more #1 hits than any female solo artist in history, who made herself into one of the most enduring performers of the 20th century entirely by refusing to accept any version of her life that was smaller than what she believed she deserved. That story is true, every word of it. What it leaves out is the cost, not hers. The cost paid by the people who stood beside her when there was nothing, when she was just Diane from the projects. And Florence was the best singer among them, and Mary was the glue that held them together, and who watched, across 2 decades, as the machinery of ambition sorted them into the star and the background. What it leaves out is the man she loved for years who would not marry her, and the child they kept secret, and the marriages that followed that were shaped by the shadow of what she and Berry Gordy could not resolve. What it leaves out is the husband she called the love of her life, who divorced her and then fell 300 feet to his death on a South African mountainside 4 years later. What it leaves out is the loneliness that fame at that scale produces, not the ordinary loneliness of a quiet night, but the specific, structural loneliness of a woman who has spent 60 years being the most important person in every room she enters, and who has never quite been certain whether the people around her stayed for her or for what she represented. Detroit, Michigan, March 26, 1944. Deanna Ernestine Earl Ross is born the second of 6 children to Fred and Ernestine Ross, a factory worker and a schoolteacher, who are raising their family in the North End neighborhood of Detroit. Her name is a clerical error from the start. Her mother names her Diane, but the birth certificate says Diana, and Diana is who she becomes, decades later, by deliberate choice when she realizes the name on the record sounds more like a star. When she is 7 years old, her mother contracts tuberculosis. The illness is serious enough that her parents send all the children to live with their grandparents in Bessemer, Alabama, while Ernestine recovers. The household that had been warm and stable is suddenly absent, physically, literally, and the girl who will grow up to command every stage she steps onto spends a formative year in someone else's house, waiting to go home. Her mother recovers. The family returns to Detroit. When Diana is 14, they move into the Brewster Douglas housing projects, the low-income development on St. Antoine Street where Florence Ballard and Mary Wilson already live. Smokey Robinson lives nearby. The Temptations are forming a few streets over. The entire Motown universe is, at this moment, just a set of teenagers from the same neighborhood trying to make something out of nothing, and the nothing is very real. Diane Ross attends Cass Technical High School and wants to be a fashion designer. She is voted best dressed her senior year. She is talented in multiple directions, hungry in all of them, and she has already identified the one talent that can carry all the others, her voice. At 15, she joins the Primettes, a sister group to a male vocal act called the Primes, organized by a local manager named Milton Jenkins. The other members are Florence Ballard, Mary Wilson, and Betty McGlone. Florence is, by most accounts, the strongest singer in the group. She has the kind of voice that fills a room before the room is ready for it. She is also the one who picked the name Supremes from the list Motown would eventually offer them when Berry Gordy agreed to sign the girls on the condition they change what they were called. Florence chose the name and did not know what it would eventually mean for her. Berry Gordy hears Diana Ross's voice stop him in his tracks while he is on his way to a business meeting. He sends the girls away to finish high school and come back. They do. He signs them in 1961, and almost immediately, the story of the Supremes becomes the story of what Berry Gordy wants Diana Ross to be, and what that requires of the people standing next to her. He makes her the lead singer. Florence has the stronger instrument, but Berry Gordy is not building an instrument. He is building a crossover. He needs a voice the white mainstream will receive. And Diana's lighter, more agile sound is more malleable to the pop arrangements he envisions. Florence's voice is too full, too rooted, too much of what it is to be easily shaped into something else. So it is Diana who sings the leads, Diana who stands at the front, Diana who the camera finds. And then, somewhere between 1964 and 1967, across 12 #1 singles and the most commercially dominant run in the history of American girl groups, Gordy makes what Florence Ballard and Mary Wilson will later describe as the decision that changed everything. He starts dating Diana Ross. The relationship is kept private, hidden behind professionalism and the carefully managed image of a record label that is also a family and a community and a moral project. But the effect inside the group is not hidden at all. Gordy becomes more focused on Diana. Diana becomes more the center of everything. The group's name becomes Diana Ross and the Supremes in 1967, which is not an artistic decision but a business one. Gordy can charge more for a solo star with a backing group than for a trio of equals. And Florence Ballard, who is drinking now, who is struggling with the weight of what is happening to the group she helped found and name, who is showing up to performances in states that give Gordy the cover he needs, is fired. She is paid $139, $804 in royalties, and told she cannot return. She signs a solo deal that goes nowhere. She marries and has 3 daughters and attempts a comeback in 1975 that draws a crowd who love her and cannot save her. On February 22, 1976, Florence Ballard dies of a cardiac arrest in a Detroit hospital. She is 32 years old. She is on welfare. She dies in the city where she grew up, broke and largely forgotten by the machine that had used her voice to build its empire. Diana Ross goes to the funeral. There are accounts of her arrival that are difficult to read. She sweeps in flanked by bodyguards, collapses in apparent grief in the aisle, pulls the attention of the entire room. Florence's friends describe it as the most Diana Ross thing they have ever seen. She made it about herself, they say. Even here, even now. The grief may have been real. The performance was real too. With Diana Ross, those two things have never been entirely separable. For years before Florence's death, Diana has been navigating the central private contradiction of her adult life. She is in love with Berry Gordy. Gordy is in love with her. He says so. He tells Rolling Stone he was madly in love with her. They want the same things. They have built something unprecedented together, and they cannot make it work in the specific way she needs it to work, which is marriage. Gordy has been married twice. He is not prepared to do it again. He says, with the specific self-awareness of a man who knows his own character, "I can't marry this woman. She's as selfish as I am." She presents him with an ultimatum. He declines to meet it, and so she does what she has always done when reality offers her something less than what she needs. She reorganizes. She meets Robert Ellis Silberstein in a Los Angeles menswear shop, where she has gone to buy a gift for Gordy. Of all things, she falls for him quickly. He is handsome and kind, and he sees her fully, and she decides. They marry in January 1971. She is already pregnant with Berry Gordy's child when she walks down the aisle. Silberstein knows this. He agrees to raise the baby as his own. Rhonda Ross Kendrick is born in August 1971. She grows up calling Gordy her uncle, noticing that she looks nothing like her sisters and everything like him, and says later that she always knew, but waited for her mother to tell her. Diana tells her when she is 13. Rhonda says she felt relieved. She had suspected. The resemblance was too clear. Diana and Silberstein divorce in 1977. She says later that Gordy was always too present in her life for the marriage to survive. The pressure of his trying to overcome Berry's importance in my life was too much, she says. It was a messy triangle. I wished he had been stronger so that instead of becoming twisted up in the confusion, he could have freed himself. The confession is remarkable for what it does not say. She does not ask whether she could have freed herself first. In 1985, on a trip to the Bahamas, she meets Arne Naess Jr., a Norwegian shipping billionaire, an experienced mountaineer, adventurous and charming, and entirely unlike anyone she has known. He is 47. She is 41. They fall quickly. They marry in 1986 in a storybook ceremony in Switzerland. Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder among the guests, and have 2 sons, Ross Arn in 1987 and Evan in 1988. She will call Arneas the love of her life. She says it to Oprah in 2011, a decade after the divorce. He brought things to my life that I would have never known, she says. He was charming. He was a romantic, fearless. You would never think anything would ever happen to him. In 1999, Neas announces on Norwegian television that their marriage is over. He has a girlfriend in Norway. He has been living a life that runs parallel to his marriage, in ways Diana did not fully know. She says she did not want the divorce. It happens anyway. On January 13, 2004, Arneas Jr. is descending a peak in the Groot Drakenstein Mountains near Cape Town, South Africa. His anchoring equipment loosens from the porous rock. He falls 338 feet. He dies on the mountainside. He is 66 years old. He was the love of her life, and she had already lost him once, and now she loses him again, in a way that cannot be undone by any future conversation. Diana Ross travels to Norway with her children for the funeral. She gives an interview to Norwegian television afterward that people who know her work describe as unlike any interview she has ever given. There is nothing showbizy about it, one person writes. It is raw but dignified. It is her, without the performance. It is the woman underneath the star, sitting with something she cannot sing her way through. The years after Neas's death are the years in which the last threads of the Supremes' original story come to their endings. In 2021, Mary Wilson dies suddenly in her Las Vegas home at 76. She is the last person alive who knew Diana as Diane, who sang beside her before any of it was certain, who watched the group become what it became and stayed in it long after Diana left, because the Supremes were her life too, even when they were no longer hers to lead. Diana wakes up to the news and posts a tweet. My condolences to Mary's family. I am reminded that each day is a gift. I have so many wonderful memories of our time together. The Supremes will live on in our hearts. The internet notices, not entirely unfairly, that she puts the group's name in quotation marks, as if it belongs to her, as if it always did. What is harder to dismiss is this. She is now the last one. Florence died in 1976 at 32. Mary died in 2021 at 76. Diana is the only original Supreme still alive, still performing, still filling arenas with the songs they made together, in a city that is now a different world from the one that shaped them. She carries all of it. The number ones, the gowns, the lights, and the weight of what happened to the women who stood beside her, and whether she could have stopped it, and whether she ever really tried. She has never answered that question publicly. She may have answered it privately, in the specific way that public people answer questions they cannot speak. By keeping the machine running, by staying on the road, by never stopping long enough for the silence to become unbearable. She is 81 years old. She told a New York crowd in March 2025 that she is never going to retire. She appeared at the Met Gala in May of that year and stopped the room. She is on tour. She is still the most commanding presence in any space she enters. And she has been that for 60 years, and it has cost her, and others, more than the stage lights make visible. The hidden struggles behind the spotlight are not a simple story of villainy or victimhood. Diana Ross is not a villain. Florence Ballard was not simply a victim. The Motown machine was enormous and indifferent, and chewed through people who were not positioned to resist it, and Diana Ross was positioned. By ambition, by proximity to power, by the specific calculation of a man who saw her as something he could build his largest dream around. What she did with that positioning is a question the record answers incompletely. She built something staggering. She also left people behind. She loved deeply and was loved insufficiently, and loved again and lost again. She has 5 children who, by her own account, are her everything. She has 8 grandchildren. She has outlasted the system that made her, the man who built her, the women who formed her, and the husband she called the love of her life. She is still on the stage, still refusing to become the past. The question that lingers, Not accusation, just honest curiosity, is whether she knows what the spotlight costs the people standing just outside its edge. Whether she has ever really looked at what was illuminated for her and what was left in the dark. Some questions travel with you. They don't need to be answered to be carried. Subscribe for more untold stories of the legends who shaped our world.